In this episode, I'm going to show you how I got this traditional rose done all with a paintbrush. And we start with doing the sketch, the drawing, then we transfer it and make it into a line drawing, inking it. From there, we're going to transfer it onto a piece of watercolor paper. I'm going to show you how to run the lines with a paintbrush. Then we're going to do the shading and the color. Let's go. In this episode, I got a little container and put in here a few names of different designs. Eagles, roses, etc. We're just going to pick something out of this container, and then I'm going to draw it for you and show you how I line it, how I practice my line work, and how I color it. Let's get it. All right. So we got a little piece of paper right here. Let's see what's it going to say. Rose. We got a rose. So we're going to draw a rose. And then we might pick out another one. It'll be kind of cool to pick them all out and then later on mix them and mix match them. Like if there's a dagger and I already did the rose and the dagger, then use both of them and redraw it and turn it into a design with a rose and a dagger. So we can do more fun stuff like that. So if you don't know what roses look like, if you don't know what the style looks like, the best thing you can do is look up some reference so you can study that style. Reference is your best friend. In this video, I'm going to be using a cool little book that I have right here. It's called The Good Book. Check it out. It's full of dope tattoo designs. It says in the front, please don't steal the designs and trace them, but use them as inspiration to make your own. And that's what we're going to do in this episode. We're going to look up some flowers right here. We got this page full of roses. So we're just going to look at this and pick out what we like from different ones and draw it on some tracing paper. And then from there, we're going to put it on the light table and transfer it to the watercolor paper. And then I'll show you how to work on the line work. Let's get it. Now we could just trace these flowers and call it a day, but you're not going to gain much from that. So if you have the time and you're not in a hurry, sit down and learn how to draw things so you can get good at it. The more you draw things, the better you get at it, the more you'll remember it. Cool, so now that we got our design sketched out, what we're going to need to do is we're going to ink it. So get a micron pen or one of these markers that I'll list right here on the link. And we're going to get a little bit of tape You want to put some tape so the paper doesn't move around while you're doing the line drawing. So just get a little piece of tape and put a little piece on the top right there. I can move the paper around, add more space. So you can flip it this way as well and put the tape on the inside. So now you got it all taped up. Flip it back on this side. Because this design is traditional, we want to keep the lines bold. With this pen, it's pretty cool because you get a thin line and a fat line. So the fat line is similar to a Sharpie. So what we're going to do is we're going to just use the fatter side and we're going to trace our design. I like to sometimes start from the top down so I don't smear it. That tip was kind of smashed down, so it was a little too thick. So I'm going to switch it up to this other marker. It's a little newer. Just like that we lined the flower. Just like that we lined it. So we're going to practice our lines with this marker. Sorry. So we're going to practice our lines with this markers just like that. Yeah, here's a little fun fact about roses. When I actually started my apprenticeship, my first day on the job, they were like, hey, can you draw? When I met the owner. And he gave me the job. He was like, can you draw? And I was like, yeah. He was like, can you draw a rose? And I was like, yeah. And then he's like, all right, let me see you draw a rose. So then I draw a rose. And it was like one of those cabbage roses. You know, the ones that are like, the ones that go like that. That's like the kind of rose I was drawing back then. I had no idea how to draw a rose. I was just like, yeah, I know how to draw a rose. I thought I knew how to draw a rose. And then I realized what a real cool rose is supposed to look like. And I was like, man, I suck. So don't feel discouraged if you're trying to draw one of these and it's not coming out exactly the way you want. It definitely doesn't have to come out like mine. I'm trying to approach this in a very traditional style. I don't do traditional often, so it might be a little neo-trad, but this is as traditional as I'm gonna get. So there you have it. We got our line drawing all inked up. I did not use any other side of this marker. I only kept I only used the thick part of the marker because it's traditional. You don't want to do different line weights. You want to do different line weights with other styles, and we'll get into that in other episodes. So now that we got our line drawing done, what you want to make sure you look at is like little spots like right here where the line doesn't touch the other line. Just make sure little spots like that get fixed. Any little imperfections that you see, make sure you go back and like detail it so that when you go to ink it on the paper canvas, you're not gonna miss anything. So now we can take this tape out and we got ourselves a line drawing. Voila. So now we're gonna turn on the light table and we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna tape the paper to the canvas or the watercolor paper just like that. Get more tape. Gonna put a little piece of tape right on the top. Just like that. We're gonna get another piece of tape and put it on the bottom. Now we got our watercolor paper right there. I think we did it backwards. Let me flip it. Right there. So now we tape this drawing that we lined up and tape it to the back of the watercolor paper. You can cut off the edges if you want to be clean with it, just like that. Turn on the light table. Make sure that the photo of the rose or your design is centered to what you're painting. In this case, it's a little bit off to the right, so we can just take it off one more time and then move it a little bit to the left, just like that, and adjust it. And now it's in the middle. Now, for beginners, you can use the micron and line it back on this, but you're not gonna have any fun doing that, and your painting is not gonna have any soul. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna buy a paintbrush for lining. Go to the art store, be like, hey, I want to get a paintbrush for lining. Or if you're watching this video, I have this cool special lining paintbrush that I got a tip from Mike Dorsey. He's one of my favorite painters and tattooers. He told me where to buy these and they're life changer. So if you want to know where they are, send me a DM and I'll tell you the secret sauce. If you don't have these at the moment and you want to try that, just try to use any kind of watercolor paintbrush that's not very thick and not very short. You want it to be longer for lining so it holds more paint. This is a Japanese sumi brush, so it works really good. And then we have some of that ink right here. We're gonna put the ink right there. I recommend always putting a little bit of water in your black so it glides. Then you want to mix it up. And you always want to have a little test sheet. So when you have to start a painting all over, don't throw it away. Keep it and use the back of it or the front of it as a test sheet. So you can test the paint and see if it's working how you like it. As you can see right there, we're getting a very nice traditional smooth line with this paintbrush. Now if you didn't have this paintbrush and you had one like this, for example, it's the same thing. You can still do the same thing. It's just that these are a little bit smaller and you can't go as far, but technically you can still line with this paintbrush. So now we're gonna start the lines. Get some dip the paintbrush in the black. Got a little fuzzy in my paintbrush. Cool, so now you're just gonna do the same thing you did with the marker, but using this paintbrush. Now I always say paintings with markers are illustrations. A real painting is done all with paintbrush. So if you want to get good at your line work, I always recommend using a paintbrush to do your paintings. Sometimes it might not come out as perfect as you want, but that's what gives it soul. You want to try to keep that same depth with your paintbrush so that it looks like bold and traditional. The reason why I like this paintbrush so much is that I can do little lines and fat lines for other paintings. If you look at my paintings on my website that I have available, all of my prints, and you check out the detail like on the little faces and stuff, all of that was done with a paintbrush. And there are times when I'm doing it and I'm like, oh man, do I really want to do this with a paintbrush right now and do these tiny little eyeballs that are like, I'm doing a face like the size of a thumb with the same paintbrush, and I'm like, am I gonna be able to pull it off? And you know, sometimes I don't and I have to start all over, and sometimes I do and I'm very excited about it. It's rewarding to push yourself and learn new things. Alright, and because this is traditional, we're gonna do it quick. But just because traditional is quick and simple doesn't mean it has to be done wrong and ugly. It doesn't have to look amateur. It can still be a sick ass, clean, beautiful tattoo. Like dudes that do sick, neat, traditional tattoos. Just like that. We're almost done with this rose line work. So you can see some of the lines are not perfect to me, but it gives the painting soul. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the black the same way that we did in our tutorials. So we're gonna put a little bit right there. And then we're gonna fade it. Erase the fade. And do the back. We do the same thing right here. Put some water. And we put some black. And we fade it. Now with traditional, you want to make the fade really short. Man, these brushes are not that great right now. And notice how I keep spinning the paper around so I can pull away from the fade, how I explained in my previous video. If you haven't watched that video, go check it out. It's a little assignment that you can do before trying to watercolor. Some tricks, you can practice some fades. Remember, you want to make sure you're pushing back and you're not going too far into the skin tone, because you want this to look traditional as fuck. So we're gonna short fades. Just let it and the stem. Make that fade disappear. And here we're fading these leaves, thinking of still some kind of light source where the light source is hidden on top of them. Just like that. Now we got our black done. Yeah. So you can keep it black and gray, or you can color it. Cool. So now we're done with the black. Done with the black, so now we're gonna color it. What are the Traditional colors, I always like to think Rastaman, yellow, green, and red. So, you don't want to use a green that's too muted because that's not very traditional. So try to keep the green more on the true green side, like that. So we're gonna just get some green watercolor paint, and I normally just go straight from the bottle, just dip it in the bottle, do this green right here. And I think I want to fade the tip. Into some yellow. You don't want to fade the green very much because then it'll turn teal. But you just want to do it just enough to make that little fade disappear right there. And we just continue the green. So on the side with the black, we don't leave a highlight. And then on this side, we will leave a little fade. Actually, let's just do that solid better. No fade. Just like that, we're being careful with those highlights, making sure we're leaving that highlight. We're not going over into the red with this green. Packing that green. You want to make sure that you paint a little bit over the line so that you don't get any like little spots that are not solid up to the line, because I notice that happens to me sometimes and I have to go back and fix it. So it's good to take your time up to the line. Make sure you get it in there. Starting to look a little bit of a traditional look, right? With this green. When you do traditional, you want to try to use true green. Don't mix it with white. Don't get yellow and mix it with black and make a muted green if you're going for super traditional. Now, if you're just having fun trying to do whatever you want in your style and you're trying to make it a little more modern, then yeah, you can use other tones and mix your own colors. Now we did the green. I'm gonna put some of the yellow inside of this. I think it would be kind of cool. So we're gonna clean out our brush. Come back in with this yellow. Come back over here. Come in with some of this yellow. Now roses wouldn't really have yellow right here, but we're having fun with it and making it a little stylized too. Even though it's traditional, it could still have style. It could still look cool. Doesn't have to be boring. Traditional is awesome. It's the fundamentals. If you're not understanding the fundamentals, then you're not having fun, my friends. So we're just gonna finish this little spot right here with the yellow. add the red. So we're gonna come in, tip it right there. So with this one, blend that out, same thing. Look at how beautiful that red looks. Just put that red right over the black. Just dipped it in the wrong brush. I keep having to fix this because I went a little too watery in the beginning. One more petal. Give it that little shadow just to sauce it up. Sauce it up a little bit. Where did that little guy go? And there we have it, folks. We did a fun little traditional flower. There we have it. Fun little traditional flower. Did some different steps. Went from the drawing to the line, inking, to the final product.